I would like to extend a warm welcome to all members of the committee and other members and officers in attendance at today's committee meeting. I am Councillor Edward Heron, Chairman of the committee. Welcome to members of the public and press who may be listening to the meeting live on YouTube. The audio broadcast will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. I would like to remind those in attendance to use their microphone when speaking and remember to switch it off once you have finished speaking. Please switch any mobile devices to silent setting for the duration of the meeting. For the benefit of those listening to the meeting online, I will now call the name of each committee member and ask them to introduce themselves. As I previously mentioned, I am Councillor Edward Heron, Chairman of the committee. Councillor Steele.
Morning, Chairman. Councillor Mark Steele, Ward Member, Burley and Branscombe.
Thank you. Councillor Brand.
Morning, Chair. Hilary Brand, District Councillor for Lyndhurst.
Councillor Craig.
Morning, Chairman. Mayor of New Milton and Member for Barton.
Councillor Harris.
Good morning, Chairman. Michael Harris, Councillor for Brockenhurst and Forest South East.
And Councillor Kangarani.
Good morning, everyone. Mahmoud Kangarani, District Councillor, where I'm from? Totson, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. And I note that Councillors Crizell and Holding are not in attendance, and if they do not arrive, we will presume their apologies. Other than that, we have a full meeting. Item 1. Do members agree to the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of June and the 18th of March? So that's the 11th of June 2020 and the 18th of March 2021 as the correct record. Can everyone agree that they're happy?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2. Do members have any declarations of interest in respect to the business for this meeting? Nobody indicated. Item 3. There is no public participation today. So straight on to item 4, which is the HR update. Helena, you're going to present this report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Those of you that are regular to the committee will know that we bring this report each time. It's really just to give you a flavour of the extra tasks that HR have undertaken in the last 3 months on top of all our normal day-to-day work. This time there's a mention of furlough. The leisure centres seems like they opened ages ago now, but they actually opened on the 12th of April. And group exercise instructors came back on the 17th of May. So we do still have a number of people on furlough, but the majority of the staff are now back working. Obviously there's the TUPE of the Health and Leisure Centre staff. TUPE. And item 3, transfer of undertakings for the protection of employment. Okay, it's the legislation that protects our employees when they transfer to Freedom Leisure, which is going to happen on the 1st of July. So they'll go, all of their terms and conditions are protected at that point of transfer. So we've had to provide Freedom, obviously, with all of the details to enable them to keep paying our staff once they're not our staff, basically. So lots of background work gone into that. The other complication there, of course, is pension services. So it's been agreed that the staff that are currently in the local government pension scheme will continue to be in that, and Freedom have arranged with Hampshire that they will have an admissions agreement to allow them to carry on in that scheme. And our existing staff who may not be in the pension scheme yet, but who are eligible, will also be on a list, which means that they can join in the future if they wish to. Okay.
There is no cost to us in terms of the pension when they have been transferred across.
There's no direct cost. What will happen is that they will reassess, as I understand it, our age profile of our workforce. So there might be a slight difference in the amount that we have to pay to pension services in the future. And once we've transferred the staff, in the HR metrics report, you'll see we've done a grid to show the age profile of our staff as it is now. And Zoe will talk about it in a minute, but we intend to bring another report in September, which will give you an update of how our age profile looks once we remove all the leisure staff. There are quite a high percentage of younger people in leisure, so it will be interesting to see how that changes our age profile of the workforce. Okay. Agency framework agreement. So I'm going to say we did that. That's the royal we. In reality, Zoe did that actually. So lots of work goes into that. Primarily, agency frameworks are used by our waste services and also housing maintenance services. But we do have occasion to use it for other professionals. So we put together a framework. The idea is that initially you try and use agencies that are on the framework to get your temporary staff. However, if there's nobody available through that framework, you are then free to use whichever agency you need to use to get the staff.
Sorry, Helena, may I ask, in terms of the agreements you have, what advantageous, if I can use that term, rates have we managed to secure?
Zoe?
Thank you.
Can you use your microphone, please? Sorry, because we don't pick up the broadcast.
Yeah, I can answer that for you. So, for example, typically we have had an agency framework before for the last 4 years. Before that came into place, we were paying approximately 20% charge rate, and we're now paying the maximum of 14. Some agencies are charging 10 and some are charging 12. So that's quite a cost saving there. Also, if we look to go to recruit those people permanently after they've been with us from an agency, the fees are much reduced. Typically, it may be around 40%, and we're able to secure 15.
Very good.
Thank you.
And then Kickstart Placements, which you asked me about earlier, Hilary. So we've got 7 currently on board. Some of them are started, some are due to start mid-June. Might have started already by now.
Yeah, some started on Monday. 2 started on Monday, and we've got another 2 that are due to start as soon as restrictions are lifted, because they need to be driving around the district in a vehicle with somebody.
So we're getting there. And then I've put in there for you at 5.4 the training. We said we get a grant, £1,500 per Kickstart placement to make sure that we provide them with training. So at 5.4 there, we've listed for you all the training that we've got organised for them. So I think that's a very good induction and gives them a bit of a view into work, really, and what it's like.
Excellent. Thank you, particularly to Kickstart.
Just going back on the agency framework, does it apply to the companies as well, or just the individual workers? We don't sort of have we don't select companies who are going to be subcontracting to New Forest. We don't have any.
So these are agencies that we go to get individuals to come and work for us.
That's right, not the companies who do work for us.
No, I think this is companies that provide agency staff for us.
Okay.
So it's
I mean, if you want to do tarmac somewhere or doing some, I don't know, some remedial work, we don't get the companies contracting to us to do the work.
We have different procurement contracts for that type of work. Yeah. Elaine, thank you. Any other questions? And as I say, excellent, particularly, I think I do need to say at this point, thank you for all your work on the 2P to freedom measure. I think, you know, those few paragraphs sort of condense down and make it seem like, you know, it was a simple thing. I'm well aware it was a far from simple thing. Mark, do you want to say so?
Just massive thank you very much to Helena and Zoe. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And equally very pleased to see the 7 Kickstart placements. So thank you. There's no recommendations on that report, so we will move to item 5, which is the HR metrics and performance monitoring. Helena or Zoe, space Zoe, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of the HR metrics and monitoring report is to provide data on a number of HR issues in order that we can make better informed decisions across the council. And we provide this yearly, and it runs to the end of March each year. It just takes a while to get to committee. So I know that you'll have all had a chance to read the report, so I thought I'd just pick out a few key items. Corporate data, our headcount and FTEs remains very similar. Those figures do include the 400-ish staff that have been on furlough in the last year. We have had a number of redundancies in the last year, mainly in leisure, through the leisure review that was carried out when we were in a furlough situation and needed to reduce class sizes. Sorry, bear with me, my paper's got muddled up. And we next move on to the workforce data, and this was something that we were asked to provide as an additional piece of information, and I think it's really useful. As Helena was mentioning earlier, it does give an age breakdown between men and women, or by gender, so that we can see how that's broken down across the authority, and we'll be bringing that again in September, and it'll be really interesting to see. There's an overview of the pay bill, which we can see is influenced by the 2.75% cost of living rise. And overall, the costs across the council for chief exec and employee remuneration remains very similar to the year before. We then go on to look at HR case management, and you can see there the different day-to-day reactive cases that us advisors have been working on. And other casework such as occupational health referrals, maternity and paternity. We then go on to one of my favourite figures, the HR data, which shows the ratio of HR people to our headcount, which is 1 to 138 people, and expert HR survey for 2020, there's no newer data at the moment, is 1 to 60. Learning and development, we can see that we have spent £108 on average per employee over the last year, and there's a breakdown of the different courses that we've run. It was a strange year trying to run courses virtually, but I think we were very successful and we managed to run a lot of courses that way, but that does impact on how much we spent because obviously those courses were slightly reduced in cost. Hopefully we'll be able to go back to some more face-to-face training in the year ahead. We then come on to talk about apprenticeships, where we have 10 established employees undertaking apprenticeships, mainly in our middle management level 5 qualification and level 3 business administration. We've also got somebody doing a degree in building control and a few other ones there that are detailed. Kickstarts are detailed in there. Helena's spoken about that. But we have just launched that training programme for the first 7 cohort, and the managers have been quite impressed with how that looks. One of the best things that we've added to that since I think, Helena, we put the report together, is we're now going to do some interview and CV writing training, at the end of which we'll do a mock interview with each of them. And then we'll give them all the other training and come back near the end of their placement and have another interview so that we can see how they've developed, which should be a positive process. Helena's already spoken about the fact that we have still quite a few outstanding, and we are working to recruit those with the job coaches, work coaches at the job centre. And that really concludes everything I wanted to say.
Excellent, thank you. Mehmet, Kill's questions.
Actually, if I'm correct to understand, on page 6, you mentioned 400 of the staff are going to be part of a leisure employees, aren't they? Yeah. And they're going to leave our payroll, aren't they?
Yes.
And that means our number of employees is going to be reduced by 400 people? And okay, that makes sense. Okay. And my next question was, what sector you are seeking for employment, employing people for? Which you said you're looking to employ more people. I'm just asking where going to work these people.
A microphone, please, sorry.
Thought I'd done it, sorry. That section is looking at our number of recruitment campaigns, which was reduced in the previous year, partly due to leisure being on furlough, as leisure created normally a higher number of vacancies. So hopefully that answers that part of the question.
Microphone, please. Sorry.
When we lose the leisure people,
Yes.
obviously some of them had multi-jobs in their roles.
Yes.
Okay, they are not going to be partly working here and partly working with the leisure thing, are they?
I think we've got a couple of people who work in leisure and also have a job in other parts of the council.
Yeah.
But the majority of them have multiple posts, but all within leisure services. So they will leave us completely.
Okay, but they're not in a key position that they can sort of conflict of interest, because obviously they're working for external companies and obviously within the...
None of those people with additional jobs here are in senior positions,
Okay.
so I don't think there would be any conflict of interest between them carrying on with their part-time role here and their part-time role in leisure. They are completely different job roles.
Okay. I think one bit interesting I've noticed here in that table, I think on page 4, workforce data. I think I'm looking at the gender age. 50. The table is quite interesting because when you get to 51 with 60, the number of women and men changes a bit from one to another. I thought.
No, I think it's quite. As I said, I think there's some data to change when the health and leisure are stripped out of that. But I think, B, there is an interest here to look at how the figures change and whether they change, because I think there is, I do note that switchover, albeit at relatively small numbers when you get to the 60 plus, but it does just appear that there is that switchover in our balance, that we have more women up to that age, and I think we need to understand why. And I think we also need to keep a close eye on our data on the number of women we have in senior management positions, because I think actually we've done in the past reasonably well, but I think we need to make sure that continues through the organisation, and I think succession planning is something that is all in our minds for the future.
We will bring an updated report at the next committee to show the difference in the data with leisure leaving.
Excellent.
I think my final point, obviously the current way of working has any impact on the trainees, because obviously they have less contact with people, not everybody here. How the actually apprentice process works, will they get deprived from getting knowledge properly?
It's a good question, and definitely in terms of new apprentices, there have been less new traditional apprentices join the authority for that very reason. But we have had 2 start during the pandemic in grounds maintenance, and they found ways to make it work, and it's been very successful. The remainder of the apprentices are current employees already, so they may well be, for example, the gas manager, and he is doing an apprenticeship as a route of training in management training, so he's able to continue doing that throughout the pandemic successfully.
The apprenticeship, do they work across the sector or just only work on one area?
It depends which apprenticeship they're doing. So it might be an apprenticeship which is to do with a trade. So obviously that's a very fixed remit. But if they're doing, like Zoe just said, management development, then that's quite broad. But so that's why some of our existing staff are able, that's probably the most, the one that people want to do the most, is because it's quite broad. It's a way of them developing skills to prepare themselves perhaps for the next job on, because certainly think about the gas manager, he's got his trade skills, So he might do some professional development to make sure his skills stay up to date. But what he now needs is that wider skill set to move to the next management role. Does that make sense?
Thank you very much. Any other questions on this report? Then there's no recommendations on this one, so thank you very much. Moving on to item 5, which is an introduction to Worksmart. Just to make it clear that this recommendation is a recommendation on the policy itself, which is going to council, and any general comments on the business case will go to Cabinet. So, Helena, over to you to introduce it.
Thank you. So, introducing Worksmart. There is an introduction there and there's some background there, but to be honest, I think we all know how we've been working over the last 15 months or so. Fortunately, because of the investment that we made in ICT, those people, a lot of our staff that were able to work from home could do so. We used Skype and Teams now, and it enabled people to stay in touch, collaborate with their staff, and so on and so forth. So about 400 of our office-based staff have been working more or less at home. Now, some come in occasionally because they need to, but by and large, they have been working off-site. So really, Worksmart is about how are we going to work after COVID, or at least once COVID is under control. So we've done some, we did a survey when COVID restrictions hadn't been in place that long. That told us that staff were looking for some ICT bundles, like a mouse and a keyboard and possibly a larger screen to enable them to work from home. So we've been able to roll that out. Then we did a poll in April this year, and the results of that are in 4.4 for you to see. And you can see it's quite obvious what the preference of staff is in terms of how they would like to work moving forward. So what we are suggesting, in essence, is that staff would be able to submit a flexible working application to their manager with a proposal of how they would like their working week to look in the future. Now, we've put some restrictions around that. We are saying between the hours of 8 and 6, Monday to Friday. So there are some parameters there because we don't want people going completely off-piste with their thoughts. And we're also saying to people, you know, there will be times when you'll need to come into the office. There might be a meeting that you'll need to come in for. So there's always that proviso that if you're asked to come in, you will come in. I think a lot of staff in the poll said what they really wanted was a bit of a hybrid. There weren't many people that actually said, I want to work from home all of the time. So for a lot of people, they quite like to come in, like as we have today, and see some actual faces and have those nice conversations that you have when you're in the office generally, that we don't have over Skype. You just don't do it over Teams in the same way. So that, in essence, is what we are proposing. Now, there will have to be guidelines, and you'll see if you look further than the actual report itself, we've done a bit of a guideline for people, and I've actually enclosed what we're suggesting is the application form itself. So people will say what their work pattern was like before COVID. So we don't really want people to think that what they're doing now is normal, because it's not. What they're doing now is because we're all being told that you should work from home where you can at the moment, but that's not going to be with us forever. And hopefully from the 19th of July, it won't be with us. There'll be a bit more normality. So there are guidelines in there. People submit their form. The manager has 28 days to consider the form. We are hoping that managers will be supportive of what the employee is looking for. However, they need to take account of the job that the person does, the restraints that puts on even working hours for that person. You know, if you are responsible for answering the phone to the public, you have to be available when the public is likely to be ringing the council. So, you know, some common sense approach to when it's suitable. But in essence, that is what we are proposing.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll start by saying that I think you only have to look at the table in 4.4 to be clear that our staff don't want to go back straight to how it was in the past, and I think all of us recognise how working being over the COVID restrictions isn't acceptable either. There has to be a middle ground in this. There are certainly benefits to work-life balance, from home working or remote working. Some people are actually choosing to work in other places. It doesn't necessarily have to be at home. But there are also disadvantages. There are disadvantages in those social interactions. There are disadvantages in the informal mentoring that one gets from an office environment. I think that the proposed way forward is sensible. Elaine, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a review mechanism in this. I think that is important. I think it would be naive to think that in this world that we're moving into, we will get everything 100% right. There may have to be tweaks and changes. I've certainly been interested to look at what's been happening elsewhere in local government, elsewhere in the private sector. There are a range of thoughts. There appear to be some businesses that don't see why they need offices anymore and never want their staff back. There are some surprising ones, actually, that have said, no, you know, the minute the restrictions are gone, you will be back in the office as you were. I mean, I find it interesting that people like Google, Apple have, you know, the people at the forefront of technology have said, actually, we think that the interaction and the team building that happens from that is more important. So again, I think that this will be a learning experience. But I think, again, if you look back at table 4.4, I think we have to embark down this cautiously, and I think done right, we should maintain productivity, maintain innovation, and give our employees a better work-life balance. Are there any questions or comments on this? Mahmood?
Just me. How do you work out the productivity of this way of working? Because at the moment we don't know really, is it your efficiency gone up, people are more productive, are we suffering from this remote working? Because obviously there is a consequence, I think Ed was just mentioned it, but do we actually have a fact?
That's very difficult, isn't it? We don't produce widgets, so we don't have a benchmark, if you like. And things have moved on. You know, last year people were having their kids at home because the schools were closed. You know, lots of things impacted on the ability of our staff to be as productive as they possibly could be. However, so what we're saying in here is any application that is approved initially is only for 12 months and then it will be reviewed. Because, you know, what if people don't work very well from home? You don't really know that yet. They're doing it now, but they have to do it now. So, you know, it will change, won't it? So we've been quite clear in 2.3. Yes, we want to be flexible with people. However, if we feel that their productivity is suffering as a result of allowing them to work from home, when we don't have to allow them to work from home, then we reserve the right to ask them to come back to the office.
I suppose just to reconfirm that people are not obliged to work from home, are they?
No.
Yeah, that's okay. No. Just this hybrid, I think, is not a copyright, is it? Issue. Use the word copyright. But my serious question would be, is that what is the difference between flexible working hours and hybrid working? Is that any difference?
So what we're saying is, if you're going to work from home, you should agree with your manager the hours that you're going to be working. So we don't, years ago, we had a flexi time scheme. People could accrue their time and they could take a day off the following month. Most places in the authority now don't have that. They work much more to a flexible working hours. So if, for example, you wanted to not start your working day until 10 o'clock one morning, as long as you made the time up and you agreed that with your manager, that was absolutely fine.
Okay.
There's no need to record that. We know where you are, or somebody knows where you are and knows when you're going to make that time up. And by doing that, they don't then accrue the time to take a day off the following month. So there's no driver, if you like, for people to accrue that time to take that day off.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Trying to be tactful here. So there's no driver for them to do that.
Okay.
What we're suggesting here is that people will say to their manager, I'd like to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday at home, and I'd like to come into Appletree Court Tuesday and Thursday. Well, obviously, we'll know when they're at Appletree Court, but they would probably say to their manager something along the lines of, I anticipate working 9 till 5 on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So your manager would expect you to be available on Skype or for a phone call or for a colleague during those office hours. And that's going to have to be monitored a little bit to ensure that people are available when they say they're going to be available. But I think, we have to start with an element of trust with our staff. If we find that they are abusing the system, we'll take appropriate steps. But I would like to think that as this is something that they're keen to have, as the poll tells us, that actually they'll be quite happy to comply with what they're agreeing with their manager.
Okay, thank you. Bob, I think you've got something then, Michael. Bob first.
Yeah, just to come in there and really pick up on some of it. Fundamentally, nothing has changed. We want to be an employer of choice. We want people to be happy when they come into work and to work for them the arrangements that best fit. We want to deliver efficiencies. We want to address the green agenda and things like that going forward. The opportunity that we've seen over the last 15 months has proven to us that there is the opportunity out there to deliver all of those objectives that are our fundamental wants from our workforce, that they are happy in their work. They want to work for this council. We get the best employees to do that, and we do it in an efficient way. We've been looking closely, and we're reporting now to all the overview panels on our performance. And the thing that strikes you there is the impact, because we are a multifunctional council activities, it's different in every area. And therefore the flexibility will be, I believe, interpreted differently in all of those areas. Fundamentally, it's still driven by the council and what we need to deliver those services. So it has to be in an agreed way. We've seen, I say, the opportunity. We've seen the reaction from staff, which has been, in the main, very positive. Look, I'm not saying that everything about working from home is all on the upside, because it isn't. There are lots of downsides from continually working from a home environment or something like that. But the staff have responded to us and proven, one, it works, and two, at this moment in time, they would welcome that flexibility within what they do. But as the chairman has said, we need to monitor it because we will see how it operates. The challenge for us and the difficult bit for the HRT is each team is so different in the council. You can't have a one-size-fits-all for everybody. And I was listening this week, I think it was to Blomberg, and there was some discussion on this issue, and they were saying that they see that different teams, because of the wants of different teams, will respond to flexible working differently. For example, some staff may work 2 days a week, 8 to 5 in the office. Some others may bring the whole team in for a week and have a week off from home. It will work differently in different areas because that's what best fits for those teams. So I think there's an opportunity that's being created. I think it's right that we grasp and look at that opportunity, but I don't think anybody is saying at this stage, we know for certain this is the future. But we need to, because of we need to see the advantages we can get from it, we need to give it a go. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I would echo the comments that have been made by the last two speakers. We have to be looking at flexibility as we move forward here. I support this paper. I absolutely support it. And I'm pleased that we're going to review this in 12 months' time. For me, that's really important because the new normal is going to include COVID together with the flu every year. We're all going to go and have our jabs in the autumn, have our flu jab and our COVID jab. Maybe they'll be together, maybe they'll be separate, who knows. But it's going to be part of the background of our lives. And therefore, I do think that we will, as people begin to come back for meetings, whether it's 2 days a week, 3 days a week, as they begin to come back to working in the office again, I think they will begin to say, actually, I missed this. Actually, I think this is, I can be more productive. Personally, I miss the water cooler moments. There are those moments when you get to talk to colleagues that you just can't do over Skype or Teams or whatever, and they're very valuable. So it's a 12-month review period. I think those should probably be ongoing 12-month review periods to see how we develop as we move towards the new normal. Clearly, more flexible working will be here to stay, but I do hope that we will be meeting in the offices far more frequently than we have been for the last 12 months. So I support the document and I support and may I just congratulate the team on the work they've been doing to get us to this point and how we've worked through the pandemic thus far. So well done to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith, do you want to?
Thank you, Chairman. Talking from personal experience, I, in my working life, spent 8 years working from home. And going into the office probably once or twice a week. The office was literally round the corner from the American Embassy in Mayfair. So you can imagine the train journey and the tube, delightful though it was in the summer months. The other benefit, I think, is one that you become more self-reliant. You do drive forward. You're more open and aware of the corporate changes that are going on. People talk to you actually far more, probably because they think, well, actually, you're not sitting in the boardroom, therefore we can talk to you and you won't say anything to anybody else. The other benefit, being flippant, was that my dog learnt to mutter expletives in several languages. And I'm sure that's something that we've all done. And the other one, to frighten the HR team, is KPMG announcing yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, their head of people, as they call him, announcing that they were giving everybody a day off to counter the stress of working from home. So I won't mention that in public, I'll just leave it in here. But thank you anyway. I also fully support what's been discussed and is on offer. Thank you both.
Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. I fully support the paper in front of us as well. With regards to, I'm pleased to see the comments from the unions as well, item 11. The last two on there, I would ask with regards to 11.2, the last two bullet points with regards to health and safety issues, information on how DSE assessment, home working, and also with regards to employees' liability, because whilst they're on attendance here, they are covered under our policies for accidents, etc., and going forward, how that would possibly be affected may be included within that health and safety assessment, please. Thank you, but brilliant paper, well done.
Thank you. In terms of the DSE assessment, all people who want to put in a flexible working application will have to complete a DSE assessment for their setup at home and submit that with the flexible working application. So hopefully that part of your query will be answered by that. I will look into the other part for you.
Thank you. Mahmood.
I think I've got my answer, but I just, when people work from home, it mentioned that they have to check with their insurance policy. And obviously there might be a cost, there may not be. And I think you mentioned the cost going to be bear by the employer or employee. I'm not quite sure. Yes, employee. Is that fair to do that? Because obviously we are producing a policy that have a consequence of cost to somebody else.
I think before Helene, I want to make something general point on this, because there are all sorts of things that you could say about home working that produces a cost on employees. There's the fact that they've got the broadband, the fact that their home and the heating's on more, the fact that perhaps they're using a spare bedroom when perhaps it might be. I think the key point I want to get on this before Helena answers specific is no member of staff is being required to work from home. It is a request to work from home. And so the answer is, if those costs, those elements are such that home working is not for you, then do not submit a request for work from home, and we will ensure that we have the facilities and space here for you to work. And I think that is a very important message to go through from this, that if you have individual member employees have to make that decision as to whether this is the right thing for them, the default is, if you don't put in one of those requests, you know, we will accommodate you in the usual way here. And there I'm sure will be member employees who, for lots of reasons, actually think no, whether it's social, whether it's space, whether it's whatever it might be, will actually go no. I was very happy with how I was working, and that's how I want to work, and that is absolutely their choice. Elaine, do you want to answer on the specific one?
Yeah, 2 points. Councillor Heron's quite correct. You don't have to work from home. So that is for employees to make that judgment, weigh it up. Does it work for them or not? If it doesn't work for them, come back to work. The second point is that looking at home working is actually part of the NJC pay negotiations this year. So it might be, and we've put it in 2.2 and referred to it, so there might be something that happens nationally that we may have to take account of further on.
Thank you. Before we figure out, I think on section 5 on performance management and people's work balance, I think we talked a lot about making sure that teams remain productive and to the monitoring of that. I think it's also going to be very important for managers to monitor that employees are not working too unsociably. I don't say too hard, because I know they all work that way, but effectively I think we've all got to keep an eye out and highlight to our managers, let's just check for those emails that get replies at 11 p.m. Let's just keep an eye on this, because there are, as we know, as well as some of those employees need assistance to time manage and make sure they get work done, there are also those who need assistance to make sure that they are not taking on too much. And the last thing one would ever want to see from that is effectively burnout from your best employees because they are taking on too much without someone there to go, hang on a minute, you know, you need to talk to us about delegating some of this, sharing some of this, because you're taking on too much. If there are no other comments, moving to Michael.
If I may, Chairman, sorry to interrupt you. Talking old hat maybe, but one of the benefits, Mahmood, of working from home, as opposed to the cost, was that the delights of the HMRC would allow you some costs, for example, to redecorate your office. And if the figure of £500 springs to mind, I just wonder whether employees who may consider working from home are aware of that fact, and whether we should make them aware of that fact. Not that I've got anything against HMRC, of course.
Thank you.
There is a grant available, I think it's £6 a week, that employees can claim direct from HMRC, and we have told employees about that previously. But like I say, the NJC national agreement will be interesting to see what they agree about home working moving forward, because it's not going away.
I think end of the day that would be a national policy really, rather than individual organisation. I think government will probably come up with some idea that everybody should work to the same rule, more or less, rather than just everybody decide for themselves. But, don't know, maybe.
We'll see.
All I would say before I go to Michael is I think sometimes innovation comes from everybody trying to do it a little bit differently until it's found out what, I think, I don't think post-COVID we would have ever imagined we could have continued the way to deliver the services without being in the office. I think we had a fundamental shift. I think we're now finding a rebalance. I think we're all industries, all sectors are going to be experimenting to find out what works best for them. Michael.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to add to the comments I made earlier about the importance of the return to work and the importance of that to the local economy. If you ran, I don't know, let's say a successful restaurant in Lyndhurst High Street, you would need people to be coming back to work in order to come to your premises to enjoy your wonderful fare and fine wines or teas, coffees, whatever, and spending money in the local economy. So we do actually need, obviously I'm referring specifically to Hillary, but all joking aside, I think it's really important that we are supporting the local economy, that we are encouraging people whenever it's possible, whenever it's practical, for them to come back to work. Gradually, over time, we'll review it in 12 months' time, as we've said, but we do have to get back to the new normal, and I think that will be people working again. Thank you.
Mike, I think that's a very important point. I would also say that when I look at Bob and keep my figures along here, we are a net outward migration district in the fact that more people leave our district in the morning to go to work than come into our district to go to work. I think we will see a fundamental shift, if this remains, in the fact that those people who perhaps were getting their sandwich or their coffee in a neighbouring city or large conurbation will be popping out to their local village or town centre to do the same. And I think I think there is change, but I don't necessarily think it's negative change. Members, moving to the recommendation at 1.1, is everybody agreed? Agreed. Any against? No, then that is agreed. Members, that completes the business for this morning's meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Therefore,